Space Marine, you ready to rumble? Let's dance. You got Stoker out here, and Battle Orders, and Warhammer. Let's dance. Let's dance the dance up right here. Okay, so I wanted to bring this up for a special reason. Okay, so I was supposed to go to the recruiters today, but apparently they had President's Day off, and they'll have tomorrow off. So I figured, you know what, we'll make up a video, and I'll actually start some battle orders for what it is in here. But I want to get started with Stoker.
Are you ready to become a non-commissioned officer? I'm going to give you a few things to put in your kit bag to put you on your way.
I haven't watched
welcome back
this
to the
yet,
channel, friends.
so.
As always, man, I am stoked to see, and I hope that you're doing well today, my friends. So this question came in from Cody, subscriber, says, hey, Stoker, I'm looking to start memorizing the creed of the non-commissioned officer. I'm only getting ready to become a PFC. Is it too soon? So we're going to break this down and hopefully give you a few things in your kit bag so that you can master your craft. So I'm going to answer the question with a couple of statements that I learned from a former command sergeant major, mentor of mine, has been for years, who of course stole the quote from somebody else, and it's a very famous quote. If not now, when? If not me, who? So Cody, the answer is yes. It is not too soon. Start memorizing this creed. Start letting it saturate and marinate in your bones so that you can start to live it. It's never too early to start memorizing the NCO creed. But aside from that, we need to do more.
Finest NCOs. I do believe that's how it starts.
You and everybody else can
no other finer than me.
Prepare themselves to become a non-commissioned officer. And so the next one I'm going to tell you is to get a copy of the MOI. It's a very practical thing. Just ask for a copy. It doesn't change in your battalion, but in that MOI, it's going to have all of the regulatory guidance and materials that your battalion,
for what we're going to do with a Warhammer simulator,
and non-commissioned officers need to have
something I'm going to bring to the table,
requisite knowledge on
more so
and about to become
than other
leaders
systems
of soldiers. So start reading and start doing these things now. Just like studying the creed, you can take your time. You don't have to study the cliff notes. Man, if you come and sit, and I'm a board member, and somebody's just obviously studied the cliff notes, and they don't care.
It takes a long time. That's why it doesn't happen often to people who break easily, or have sharp edges, or who have to be kept carefully. Generally, by the time you're real, most of your hair has been loved off, and your eyes drop out and get loose in the joints and very shabby. But these things don't matter at all, because once you're real, you can't be ugly except to people who don't understand.
6-22 and 7-22.7 and 7-22 and all of the other Hall of Fame guidance and doctrinal items that we have out there that speak into us on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you very much, Stoker. I just love that intro. I want to make sure I get my first sergeant out here and what I learned from in the militia. But for the 7 principles of training, right here. Thank you very much, Stoker.
And look at it, and look at all of the things that you control, because that's...
Okay. And I wanted to do that just because I think it's an important topic to what we're doing. So if I can continue here, what I'm about to do here is I'm going to need these functions in battle orders. One, because they're common hat and explicitly in the military, whether they are up to date or they are not up to date, given today's battlefield, multi-domain battlefield from Perkins. The tread docs inside here is going to be based off of these photoelectric effects. Something that I can then build character cards off of for not just within a unit, but how those units work. And the reality here is tanks and people, they don't directly move on a battlefield like that, nor would SCAL, under certain circumstances, work to a correct model without the Space Marine here, or a symbol base, to be correct. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to steal this original World War II Army ranking insignia structure.
There are a few things
and we're going to apply it to the Warhammer model methodology of statistics and probability to deal with the calculations necessary of things like Sun Tzu, right? So that gives us a rough battlefield. Now, obviously, for me, Space Marine, I'm going to go 42 ed with the Bones crew out here in your daily lines and your Field Graders Association for doing the rock, much like you'll see in in my Bluestone Militia
In a game
manual.
of Warhammer 40,000, each player commands an army made up of Citadel miniatures.
Just a little
Everything
different.
in your army has a value.
You know, this would have
which
been my
reflects
first round
how
about that, but we're
powerful
going to
or
have
rare
a
it
lot of
is.
trouble, well,
And these
not
values are
scaling
used to
battlefields
make sure
right,
your
not
games
scaling
are
time
fair,
topology to the
exciting
level of
battles
inflation
wit
behind
and
those
skill.
systems,
The
while
mission
we're
you
working
select
to
will
reel
explain
off
how
of
big
general
your army can
relativity,
be.
right?
You'll also want to know about units.
So as we begin to go through
An
this,
army is
whether
made
there's a
up of
system out
lots
there or
of
not,
different
7
units.
principles of
All
training
models
in the army,
Warhammer 40,000
that's a
move and
fair
fight in the
value.
game
If I can
as
do that
units.
here to make the
A
adjustment
unit
over
might
there
be
is
a
not going to
squad
be
of
much
soldiers,
difference,
a
but this
tank,
gives you a
a
framework
monster,
in which
or
to
maybe a
substitute
powerful
those
hero.
calculations
If a
with
unit
congruently.
consists of
So
multiple
that means
models,
correctly that
then
it doesn't
all the
cause a
models
water
in that
hammer
unit will
or
move
pressure
and fight
differential
together. Make
airlock
sure every
system
model
if
in
the
a
pipe
unit
works
is
aren't
within
right
2
as the plumber
inches
or what
of
have
another
you,
model from
because
the
they
same
work the same
unit
way
at
as well.
all times, in an unbroken chain,
Here, again,
like so.
we'll have a problem with the
This is called
topology
unit
of the
coherency.
scale of that. In
As we
units
go
like
through
this, now
this how to
obviously
play
there would
guide,
be
we'll
skirmishes
explain more
or
about
simulations
units.
on how
But
to
for
deal
now,
with
it's
land
important to
navigation
remember
or
2 things.
terrain
1,
topology
all units in
or
your
variables
army
like that,
are
because they'll
friendly
augment
units.
the
2,
movement
all
speed
units in your
and
opponent's army
movement
are
distance, not
enemy
just off of a
units.
roll, but how the ground in itself
Every
in an
unit in
elevation
Warhammer 40,000
problem or
has
a
its own
slope
data
problem on a
sheet.
hill would augment
These are
that
handy
variable, and
guides
something
that
to at
contain
least be
all the
aware of
information
in
you'll
terms
need
of a
to
dilation
use
or
those
a,
models
what do
in
they
your
call it, an
games.
anomaly or
A
discrepancy
data sheet
against what our
tells you everything you
probabilities will
need to know,
represent.
from how fast
Generally,
your
you'd look
units
at
move,
the
to how
land map
brave
and the
they are,
topology
and the
of
power
that
of
and
their
say,
weapons.
well, going up a hill or
As you
utilizing
watch
that
these
that
videos
line,
and
that
learn how
topology
to
line,
play Warhammer
will make a
40,000,
big differential
we'll
inside of
break
that
the
set,
data
at least in
sheets
our
down for you
probability.
and explain
So with these
everything
battle
that's on
orders,
them.
you can expect to see
As we
with
learn
these
how to
ranks
move
a
our
character
units,
card.
fire their weapons,
Also a
fight
unit
with them in
character,
close
because we
combat,
can still
we'll
generalize
refer back
what
to the
most
data sheet
units
for
look
more
like, right?
information.
There's probably a tank unit, a bar in there, some
Battles
lieutenant, a company
have to happen
commander.
somewhere. And
How
in
does that
Warhammer
start to factor
40,000,
when these things
we call
drop
that
down?
place the
You know, individually they go back to their
Makes sense,
individual
right?
character
The
cards.
mission you've
I'm
chosen
sorry to
to
admit it,
play
Pharaoh.
will
I grab you by
outline
the ear out
basics
there
of
and
your
drop you in the
battlefield.
desert. We're all
But
slave
they
to
all
gravity.
have a couple of
Which is
things in common.
27 pieces under
Battlefields are
denial. A
rectangular
money
in
wrong.
shape, so they fit on most tabletop spaces.
You're gonna find out that
They should have
dragon in the
some
temple is
terrain
probably one of your
features to
guards.
give your models some
They're
cover
hard
from
as
the
shit,
enemy,
and they probably
and
held
add
up the place
tactical
because,
depth to your
well,
games.
they're the police in
In these
Canada out there in
videos,
Ottawa
we'll
getting
only be
paid,
going
but
over the
hey,
basics
this
of
is where we
terrain.
are living.
But as you become a seasoned general, you
Um,
can dip into the full
so we're gonna
rules
get into
to
that. I'm
maximize
probably
the
gonna set up
strategic depths available.
the theoretical
In
first
Warhammer
on the
40,000,
write-outs
we
first
use
and kind of
measurements to see
redesign
how far our
the
models move
gameplay
across the battlefield,
and
whether their
what the
weapons
book
are within
mechanics that's
range
there
of
you
their
have to
foe,
buy.
and
You
all
should
sorts
be
of
able to
other
look at and
situations.
re-engineer
All
equally
measurements in
like
a
being
game
able to
are made in
readjust it
inches.
to
We recommend
the
you
standards
use a
here.
measurer or a
Again,
tape
super
measure.
critical
If you ever
skill.
need to measure between
But if we
two
don't
models,
find a way
and when
to
the
scale
shooting
the
starts, this will
battlefield
happen a lot,
off of the
always
pilot's
measure between
theory
the two nearest
of this
points on the
operator right
model's
here,
bases.
then it would be hard to determine on what
Even
scale they
Space
best
Marines
work for, or
sometimes
why
miss
we
their
would use
targets.
those units
And in
into
a
those
game of
systems,
Warhammer 40,000,
which will make a vast
you'll use
difference
dice
in
rolls
terms of
to
the
see if a
Olive
shot
0,
hits
Olive
its
1
mark,
calculations
how
of probability of those
devastating an explosion
positions.
is, or whether the nerve of your
Back to
warriors can
multi-domain
hold
battlefield
in the
of
face
Perkins.
of adversity.
You know, generally you're going to get a
used in
questionnaire
Warhammer
for your tread
40,000
docs
are
about, or
standard
your ASVAB
six-sided
about
dice.
your general
Sometimes
science,
referred to
arithmetic
as a
reasoning,
D6. You'll need a
word
few of
knowledge,
these,
paragraph
so make sure
comprehension,
you've got some to hand.
mathematics, electrical
Sometimes
information,
you'll need
and
to
so
add
on
your
and so
dice
forth.
rolls
Because
together.
not necessarily
If you need to
as a
add the
person,
results from two
but
dice
back to the
together, for
ASVAB,
example,
why would you
this
have
will be
high
written as
probability as a
2d6.
lieutenant, not just because you have electrical
Sometimes you'll be asked to roll D3.
electrical reasoning
this,
or understandings,
roll a
but that would probably
D6
go
and
heavy
halve the
into
value,
comms
rounding
or
up.
something in the Q25 direction where you're going to have a
All
lot
games of
more
Warhammer 40,000
natural
are
bases with
divided
it. Some
into a
people better with
series
cue
of battle
cards,
rounds,
some people
where
better
both
with
players
writing
get
the
a
notes
turn to
down,
use their
fundamentally
armies.
hammering it
We'll
out.
take a look at the battle round in our next video.
You know, energy and the harassment under that standard, it can be a learning skill like that. And I'm not saying that it fits always best into those criteria, but if you know how to adjust and the topology is correct for that, you could play into that sharp 670-1 grooming policies. Or additionally later,
in a battle round,
in electrical
both
engineering,
players
you
take
could
a
say,
turn.
what is the
Each
promotion
player's turn
board, the
is divided into
PAW
7
600
phases,
or
each of which will be covered by their own
150-1
video.
battlefield
Your mission will
obstacle
tell you
course
which player
build
goes
that
first in
a
each
general
battle
would
round,
do,
and when they've
much like a
completed all their
private would
actions,
do
the other
operating
player then
on
takes
that
their turn.
obstacle
The
course.
phases are
So in itself,
command
boot
phase,
camp is an
where both
obstacle
players
course, but
muster
not necessarily.
strategic
150 is a
resources
boot
and
camp, but
use
not
tactical
necessarily
abilities. 2.
for an army
Movement
base,
phase,
more
where your
like an
units
analytical
maneuver
principle
across the
base
battlefield.
inside of the information.
3. Psychic phase,
Sure we're not
where
going
your
long here.
psychers
So I'm going a little long. I
unleash
want to make sure I
powerful
cut this out.
mental abilities.
But that's my
Shooting
first
phase,
resume.
where
Go
your
back and check
units
out my
fire
stuff while
deadly
working on
ranged
Rubik's Cube
weapons at the foe.
and implying
5.
that
Charge
combination
phase,
daisy
where your
pattern
units storm
as
into
field
combat
theory
with the enemy.
in the system.
6.
So we'll be
Fight
back
phase,
into that in a minute
where
here.
both players' units pile in and attack with melee weapons. 7. Morale phase,